Greetings and welcome back to room 303 in our chats with Emily as we are calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson. We are in the Johnson edition and we turn now to one of Emily's most anthologized poems, 449, I Died for Beauty but Was Scarce. And it's interesting that the line breaks at the word scarce, and we'll obviously talk about word choice all the way through our study of this, what some have called a Browning-esque dialogue. This is, for some of us, going to be returns back to our studies of 115 and 216. We are definitely back to our study of Keats's Ode on a Grecian Urn, as well as Elizabeth Barrett Browning's A Vision of Poets. You'll remember that Keats will end his classic, and we've given full lectures on this poem at learnstrong.net. Beauty is truth, truth, beauty. That is all you know on earth and all ye need to know. Browning's A Vision of Poets will include the lines, quote, these were poets true who died for beauty as martyrs do, for truth the ends being scarcely two. Now, I think that Emily is definitely channeling both of these poems, and I think that Emily is as well channeling a lot of her study of Plato. You'll remember that famous Platonic triad, the good, the beautiful, and the true. Now, our assumptions are that you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net, down that left-hand side, Chats with Emily, our playlist. I'm hopeful that you worked through our set of introductory comments as well as the preceding 448 poems. We just finished with 448. This was a poet. Now, this was one of 14 poems that was selected by Higginson. We commented on this in earlier studies for the Christian Union of 25 September 1890. And when it was published, it was actually titled To Kinsmen. And we'll obviously ask why that's the case. Now, we are back to Emily's perspectives on death, right? We are back to our study of Dante and especially Inferno. You guys remember that those pivotal moments, we've given full lectures on Inferno at learnstrong.net. You guys will remember that when Dante the Pilgrim is traveling through Inferno, he will pause and have these conversations or these dialogues. We're going to have one of these dialogues here. And this is really in many ways Emily's dance with beauty and truth just crystallized. We're going to finish by looking at several of her poems where she plays around with both beauty and truth. Some have actually called this poem a fable to try to play around with the Platonic idea of the good, the beautiful, and the true. I died for beauty, but was scarce adjusted in the tomb, when one who died for truth was lain in an adjoining room. He questions awfully, why I failed. For beauty, I replied, and I for truth. Themselves are one, we brethren are, he said, and so as kinsmen met a night, we talked between the rooms until the moss had reached our lips and covered up our names. Now, the word picture is, of course, profound. I think there's a number of reasons why this is a poem that many of you will have seen elsewhere. You will possibly studied it earlier in your career, high school career or college career. Notice the first. We're back to Emily and to her fascination with death. Now, some have claimed that the speaker of this poem is female and the responder in the poem in the dialogue is male. Beauty is female and truth is male. I'm going to leave it to you guys. Of course, famous poems about death, 465, 712, both are maybe Emily's two most famous poems of dying and death. Notice, I died for beauty. Now, how the death occurred and why the death occurred never is mentioned in this one. But then notice the dash. But was scarce adjusted in the tomb. Scarce is interesting because here in a little bit it's going to be softly. Scarce adjusted in the tomb when one who died for truth. And here in a bit when we're reading our poems on beauty and truth, we'll get to 836, one of her most famous poems about truth, was lain in an adjoining, notice from adjusted to adjoining, room. So this is quite a remarkable word picture. Yes, I mean, we can't help but think of Gray's elegy in a country churchyard. So here we go. We've got two graves side by side. By the way, kind of point out the idea of rooms and the wall that is between them, the wall that is between beauty and truth. And then he will be the first one to speak. And again, Chats with Emily is aptly named for our series, right, given a poem like this. He questioned, but noticed softly, right, why I failed. Now, it's interesting the word failed here. Like, does fail mean death? Or does fail mean something else, right? Of course, hear the F sounds in this line. He questioned softly, why I failed. For beauty, I reply. And I for truth, he will say. Themselves are one. Now, it technically should be themselves or, of course, they. Emily loves to play the game. Of course, this being one takes us immediately to Keats' beauty is truth, truth, beauty. That's all you know on earth and all you need to know. We, brethren are, of course, kinsmen will be the line here in a second, are, he said. And so, now to the third and final stanza, and so, as kinsmen, right, and this idea of kinsmen takes us to why in 1890 this poem is called Two Kinsmen, as kinsmen met a knight. Now, I think that's not a throwaway, met a knight. Again, I think this is taking us to her reading of Dante, especially in the Inferno, when those conversations happen in the darkness, right? The uncertainty of Inferno. We talked between the rooms. Now, this is almost as if somehow the barrier or the wall between beauty and truth somehow is broken down, and now they can chat. Until the moss had reached our lips. Notice the victory or the conversation is brief, much like in Dante, until the moss had reached our lips and covered up our names. It's an amazing, the democratization of death immediately brings to mind, of course, Hamlet and his conversation with Claudius in 4:1, you'll recall, when he plays the game of, when Claudius asks him, where is Polonius at supper? Not where he eats, but where he is eaten. A certain convocation of politic words, eat and now, the man may fish of a worm that hath ate of a king. You'll remember all of that in our conversation of Hamlet. It's at learnstrong.net if you want to run it to ground. And finally, the names are ultimately all covered up. Now, at 2:8, what exactly is the message of a poem like this? I think Emily is arguing that all great art is a dance between beauty and truth. And she hopes that her poetry will be that as well. And in the end, of course, the good will then be the bringing of those two together. At 2b, of course, the slant rhyme, replied and said, rooms, names, and of the F sounds as well. It is interesting that she may be channeling several things here. We've mentioned already Browning and Keats. But I think there's the possibility as well, as one scholar's pointed out, that she might be playing around with Shakespeare's The Phoenix and the Turtle. You'll remember those lines at the end. Truth may seem, but cannot be. Beauty brag, but 'tis not she. Truth and beauty buried be, end quote. And I think it's very possible that that's the game she's playing. I want to play around though, because we have a few minutes, already forecasting some of the poems to come, and when we get there, we'll obviously come back to this poem. When we get to 5:16, she'll play this game. Beauty be not caused, it is. Chase it and it ceases, chase it not and it abides. Overtake the creases in the meadow when the wind runs its fingers through it. Deity will see to it that you never do it. Or when we get to 988, she'll say it this way at 988. The definition of beauty is that definition is none of heaven easing analysis, since heaven and he are one. When we get to 1474, she'll say it this way. Estranged from beauty none can be, for beauty is infinity, and power to be finite ceased before identity was leashed. And then, of course, maybe one of her most famous poem, 836. Again, we're gonna love to study this one later. Truth is as old as God, his twin identity, and will endure as long as he a co-eternity, and perish on the day himself is borne away from mansion of the universe, a lifeless deity. Or when we get to 1455 and 1456, we're going to have fun when we study these two poems together. 1455, opinion is a flitting thing, but truth outlasts the sun. If then we cannot own them both, possess the oldest one. And 1456, so gay a flower bereaves the mind as if it were a woe, Is beauty an affliction, then? Tradition ought to know. And finally, when we get to poem 1129, we will enjoy this one as well. Tell the truth, tell all the truth, but tell it slant. Success in circuit lies, too bright for our infirm delight, the truth's superb surprise. As lightning to the children eased with explanation kind, the truth must dazzle gradually, or every man be blind. Finally, in 3a, we can think about our study of Plato's Republic and our analysis of what we in 303 call that theory of the forms, the two-box theory of the forms of what Plato called it. The idea that there is this physical dimension, we'll call it a beautiful face, and then there is this metaphysical dimension we will call, of course, there we will place beauty itself in that second box, as we refer to it often in 303. Finally, at 3b, what are your thoughts on which is more important in your life? Is it beauty? Is it truth? Is it goodness? Or is it yes? And take the approach of Emily. Thank you.